Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've uploaded hundreds of talks here that I've recorded at meetings in West LA, and I've also recorded conventions starting in 2013. I've got a bunch of those up. And Walt and Mary Murray, the original owners of Encore Audio Archives, started the company in the 80s, and Walt recorded Joe and Charlie's and a bunch of stuff down in Vista, California. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994. I hope you find something you like, so please like and subscribe to my channel and comment down below. If you want to hear something that I don't have or that you don't see, I'll see that I get it. Anyways, take care and have a great day if you want to.
Now let's welcome our first speaker for tonight, Audrey.
Hi, I'm Audrey, still an alcoholic. I'm going to put this down here because I'm kind of short, so I can't see very well. Okay. Well, first let me just say, since Bruce mentioned this already, I did repeat it a second. I got my year cake, and then I took my 2-year cake the first time around because I wanted to prove that the first year wasn't a mistake. And so I took my 2-year cake, and the week after I took my 2-year cake, I smoked a joint on Christmas Day, and had a wonderful time. And I didn't drink anything, and I thought, well, you know, okay, I never liked drinking in the first place. Drinking is what brought me down, but I really liked to smoke dope. And so maybe I can just smoke dope and not go back to drinking. And so 6 more months went by, and a very old friend of mine called me on the first day of summer, and we always used to go out and get drunk on the first day of summer. And he called me on the first day of summer, and he said, well, are you still sober? And I said, well, yeah, you know, like I'm not clean, but I'm sober. So he said, well, maybe you're not an alcoholic after all. I said, maybe not. He said, well, you want to test it? I said, okay. So he brought over a couple of beers, and I never liked beer in the first place, so it wasn't very hard for me to stop after the first couple of beers. And I remembered that feeling of a buzz, but it was just a little buzz, and I was stoned, so it was okay. And then a week later, he called me back, and he said, well, did you get drunk during the week? I said, nope. He said, did you have any cravings? I said, nope. I said, I've been stoned every day, but I haven't had any cravings for alcohol. So he said, well, then maybe you're not an alcoholic. I said, you know, you're probably right. And he said, well, what do you want to drink tonight? I said, how about some rum? You got any rum? Because I always liked rum. Rum I did like. And so he said, yeah, I got some rum. I'll bring over the rest of my bottle. So he did, and I got really shit-faced. And I finished my drink, his drink, and the rest of the bottle. And when I was into my 4th drink, this old friend of mine sat there on the bed, and because I have a studio little place there, and he said to me, well, are you drunk enough to give me a blowjob? Now, I've never had sex with this man, but he's a, quote, old friend. And I said, no, I'm not that drunk. And he said, okay, well, we're out of rum. And I said, so I said, well, there's this yacht club across the street where I used to be a member, and I'm sure they wouldn't mind giving us more drinks because, you know, they liked me up there. So he said, okay. So we went across the street, and everybody started buying me drinks because they were so excited to see me. I hadn't been up there in 2 years, and I was drinking again. And a lot of people at yacht clubs drink. It's a cheap little yacht club, not a lot of money, just a small little deal. And anyway, I just got so drunk that he actually had to leave because he couldn't deal with me at all. And some other guy walked me home, and he didn't have a car. He only had one of those little dinghies, and I was afraid to let him drive because having been sober for 2 years, I had a belly full of AA, you know. So I was afraid for him to take his boat back to his bigger boat. So I convinced him, which I guess wasn't very hard to do, I convinced him to stay at my house so that he would be safe. And when I woke up the next morning, I was on top of the covers dressed. He was under the covers undressed, and I thought, whoa, thank God, how did that happen? And he left. He never hurt me. He didn't do anything, you know, untoward, if you will. And I just puked and was sick all day long, and that night, which happened to be a Sunday night, I came into this meeting again, 7:30, and you know, as they say, thank God I got the gift back. I mean, it wasn't hard for me to stay here, which from a lot of the stories that I hear, it really is hard for people to get back, and it wasn't hard for me to get back. So anyway, 6 months went by, and much like what Joan said, I had a teaspoon of Jack Daniels that was on top of a birthday cake, a natal birthday cake for me. And we all had ordered a bunch of different desserts, and so there was Jack Daniels on this birthday cake, and I always heard people say, well, you know, if it's cooked off, it doesn't matter. So I asked everybody at the table who tasted it first, well, can you taste the Jack Daniels? And unanimously, they all said, oh, yeah, you can definitely taste the Jack Daniels. And I could smell it from across the table. But because it had been cooked in, I said, well, let me have a taste. So I tasted it. When I told my sponsor the next morning, she said, well, you have to change your date. And I was really pissed, but she was right. And so that was a year ago on my natal birthday. And so on December 26th of this year, I turned 50 years old, and I turned 1 year old on the same day. And I'm just hoping that life starts at 50, because if it doesn't, I'm really fucked. Okay, so I still have like 8 minutes. Okay, so my father was drunk when I was conceived, at least that's what I've been told. And so I think that he must have, you know, that little piece of sperm must have had some of that alcoholic gene in it, because nobody else in my family is an alcoholic or likes to smoke dope, or they're real compulsive about making money, but that seems to be it. And I got cut out of all of that money because I was an alcoholic and liked to smoke a lot of dope. And although they didn't know that about me, or at least I don't think they knew that about me, they did know that I rejected every moral and belief and philosophy that they had, and I pretty much, it's hard for me, I'm real big on words and semantics, so I want to be careful about this. They beat the shit out of me physically, so I left. They said, you abandoned us. And I said, well, yeah, you know, I mean, you weren't very nice to me. So when I say they, my dad was real fond of a red belt, and my brothers were real fond of punching, and my mom was real fond of saying, she did this and she deserves this, so that I was sort of surrounded by 2 older brothers and a dad and a mom who weren't very nice to me a lot of the time. A lot of the time they were very nice to me, though. I mean, you know, give credit where credit is due. They, you know, they did their best, as you say. So I was this golden child, and I grew up, or I learned how to say no at age 10, and then suddenly got on everybody's nerves. And I learned how to drink when I was 17. I discovered Boone's Farm and dope in the same day, and I preferred dope to Boone's Farm, so that was lucky for a while. Then in college, I discovered bourbon and Quaaludes on the same day. And I found out that if I had a half a Quaalude and a couple of bourbons, I was there. And so I didn't really need to drink a lot as long as I had a full supply of Quaaludes. And of course, there was always dope. I always smoked joints, always, as a backup. For about 3 months in college, I every weekend went to this same bar, did a half a Quaalude, a couple of bourbons, woke up on Sunday morning with guys that I had never would have been attracted to had I been sober. And after 3 months of that, I started puking every Tuesday morning. I can't figure out why it took 48 hours for me to start puking, except that maybe that's how long guilt takes to set in. Because I wasn't physically ill from the alcohol, I just was nauseous with, I was nauseous about my behavior. My behavior was what was killing me. And so it took, like every Sunday night, I would call home and talk to my family. And they'd say, well, how are things going? I'd say, just fine, knowing what I had done the night before. And on Monday, I'd go to work, and Tuesday morning, I would puke. So I decided I had to get out of Boston because that was the problem. I'm sure you all know about geographics. So I moved to LA in 1975, and I just smoked dope. I was one of those people who just smoked dope. But because I've got that brain chemistry that the rest of us have, I was very attracted to alcoholics and cokeheads. So I hung out with a bunch of people who did coke and drank an awful lot, and they would make fun of me because all I did was smoke dope. And I lived with a psychologist for 20 years, a clinical neuropsychologist. I'm a marriage and family therapist. He drank, I smoked dope. He died 5.5 years ago with cirrhosis of the liver, hardening of the arteries. He had a massive stroke. One day he was alive, the next minute he was not. In my mind, that means that complications from alcoholism killed him. The actual autopsy said that he had a stroke, but, he was diagnosed with hardening of the arteries when he was only 40, but he preferred drinking to blood pressure medicine and exercise, so he died when he was 56. The last couple of years of his life, we had lost our house to foreclosure. We had closed our business because we had no clients. My parents had disinherited me. I had been fired from a job. We were living in this tiny little apartment in Venice. I didn't have my car anymore because I'd been in a car accident on the freeway, and I didn't have any car insurance anymore because I couldn't afford it, so I couldn't afford to get it fixed. So I was taking buses, and after I found out that when my dad died in 93, my mom died in 94, I found out a few weeks after my mom died from my brothers that I had been completely cut out of anything financial, no family possessions, no sentiment, no nothing. I just was like cut out. So I thought, I could probably use a drink. And so my guy was very excited because he'd been wanting me to drink all those years anyway. So he taught me how to drink. And in the last couple of years of his life, I learned how really well. I was a very good student. So after he died, I pretty much went underground. And I woke up in the morning and I had rum in my hot water because I didn't drink coffee. I was a purist. I had white rum in my hot water with lemon, and I would smoke dope as soon as I woke up. And I did that for a good year and a half. And then I called a very old friend who I heard had 15 years of sobriety. And I called him under the guise of letting him know that my guy had died. And he came over to visit me in my little houseboat where I live now. I've been there almost 6 years. And he was so sad. He said to me, "My God, what happened to you? You're like," he was very sad. I had my shades down, and I live on a houseboat where if you lift up the shades and I have skylights, it's like bright, really bright in there. But I had my shades drawn, and I was really stoned, and I was hiding my rum, and he Eskimoed me into the program. And that was in 1999, and I already told you what happened. I got those first 2 years. I stopped going to meetings at 18 months. Miss Smarty Pants said, "Oh, I got this down. I don't need meetings." So I think it was because I didn't really involve myself with the people. I didn't have a Jessica. I didn't have friends in the meetings. I didn't look forward to coming. And so I stopped meetings at 18 months. I already told you that when I got high again, so that's that. So how it is now, I learned from my friend Marty. How it is now is the book, The Steps in God, okay? The book, I have not read the book 16,000 times. I do not know page numbers. I have read the first 164 pages through at least once. And then on occasion, if I'm really bummed out, I will open it to just any page, kind of like a Bible, where you need a quick shot. You just open it to any page, and I read what's there, and usually it's like a fortune cookie. It tells me what I need to be told. I suspect that as I get sponsees, I just got my first one yesterday, that I will read the big book more and more, because you have to take them through the steps, which brings me to the steps. I have taken the steps 3 times. I am so glib and I write so well that I just did my 4th step, no problem. I knew all the people I resented. I've been a therapist. I've been in therapy. Yeah, I know all that shit. So when I was all done, it was like, okay, big deal, now what? I already know what I feel guilty about. I already know what my resentments are about. So the hardest part was the amends part. I had financial amends to make with the IRS. I owed money to everybody. And the hardest one is my brothers. My parents are both gone, so I did my bit where I wrote my letters to them, you know, threw them in the water, burned them, all that stuff. But my brothers are still alive, and my brothers still have all that money, and my brothers still think I'm a piece of shit. And I have to, quote, pray for them every single day. And what I do is I use the 11th step. I say that I pray for my brothers and their families and all the souls that I love and I hate and I haven't even met yet. And I pray for all of us to have the same thing, which is that I pray for us to have the knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry it out, period. And that's what I do. And I do it every single morning and I do it every single night. And then I also do the 3rd step prayer and the 7th step prayer and a whole bunch of other little deals. Okay, so then just real quick, so that brings me to God, which I'm saving for last, because I really have a hard time with the God concept. I don't have a hard time with God, you know, like I'll say, thank God I got the gift, thank God I'm healthy, thank God, you know, all the Jewish stuff, thank God. But when it comes to, when people say, you gotta pray, I get real nervous. I feel like praying is my private little personal thing that I don't really do out loud, except when I'm holding hands at the end of the meeting. And the God as I understand Him is cool with that, because it's God as I understand Him, so whatever, you know, whatever I want to do is fine. And I think the most important thing for me is that, however, is that phrase, God as we understand Him. I try not to get scared when I hear other people having a concept of God that I don't have, and I try and just let them have whatever it is that makes them feel safe and comfortable. And by the same token, I hope that they'll let me have whatever makes me feel safe and comfortable. And I figure that's the way we stay sober, because otherwise, you know, I'd be out there bashing heads. So, thank you.
Sorry to interrupt your viewing. Taper Dave here. Just wanted to take a second to ask you to like and subscribe to my channel. Let me know if you like what you're listening. I've got some very good talks here, and this one's a great one. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Tell me what you think. Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I'm not standing outside in the weather. To install the joysticks for control, up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with. And it's actually controlled through the iPhone, through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone, through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone, through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here.
Remote control connected.
Remote control's connected. So I pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs. Long legs extended first, then the short legs. Remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst and one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. It shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. Out, in, oop, out, in, up, down, and then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. I don't know if that shows up. The gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. And I'm calibrated to take off. It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky, which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right. But I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.